Stellar Crown is set to be released on September 13th, 2024. So if you're looking to find some of the best GLC cards you might consider putting into your deck, then you found the right place. We're going to go ahead and start talking about some of these cards. It's not going to be a super impactful set, but it's going to be some stuff that you might worth considering putting into your deck. So I hope you guys are doing well, and I want you guys to know that you are loved. Let's go ahead and check it out. So starting off with the grass type Pokemon, I think we only have one grass type in this one right here. We have Ledian. It's a 90 HP grass Pokemon. It is a stage 1, and it evolves from Ladybug with the ability Sparkling Star Pattern. When you play this Pokemon from your hand to one of your Pokemon during your turn, you may switch in one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with 90 HP or less to the active spot. So you can kind of gust up some of your opponent's more weaker HP Pokemon, 90 HP or less, as like a free boss. So you might play this with Devolution Spray or Scoop Up Net, so you can recycle this Pokemon and just kind of pick off their weaker supporter Pokemon, which, I mean, Octillery is a great Pokemon in water, Drizzile is a great Pokemon in water, and they only have 90 HP. So those are some examples of some Pokemon that you can just gust up for free with Ladybug and start taking KOs on your weaker, your opponent's weaker Pokemon. The attack isn't anything big, but it is 2 colorless Swift for 70 damage. This attack's damage isn't affected by weakness or resistance or by any effects on your opponent's active Pokemon. So, I mean, it's pretty much a shred where you're hitting for 70. So with a Muscle Band or even Lurantis, you can hit for 20 more damage with that. But other than that, Ledian is kind of nice, kind of just fine. It's pretty fine. From there, we have Salazzle. You might put this in a Fire Mill deck. Has the Sudden Burn attack for 2 colorless. Your opponent discards a card from their hand. If this Pokemon evolved from Saland during this turn, they discard 2 more cards. So basically forcing your opponent to discard up to 3 cards with the Salazzle if you evolved that turn. Now, it's not incredible, but it is a nice, decent mill card that you can put into your fire deck. Then it has the attack Flamethrower for 130 damage. Discard an energy from this Pokemon for 1 fire, 2 colorless. Not the greatest, but it is an interesting Pokemon that you might consider putting into your GLC deck. Then we have Turnator. Has 130 HP, has the Ring of Fire attack for 1 fire, 2 colorless, hits for 50 damage. Your opponent's active Pokemon is now burned, and that Pokemon cannot retreat the next turn. So you can kind of like put something that's heavy out from your opponents, like gust up something heavy that they can't retreat, or maybe even, you know, one of their opponent, one of your supporter Pokemon. Just kind of trap them up there, hit them for 50, and let them kind of burn away, maybe, if possible. But other than that, you have another attack, 2 colorless Inferno Onrush for 180 damage. That's some pretty good damage for fire. So that you might consider putting this in. It does damage itself, 60 damage. But I mean, most of the time, a lot of the time, you're getting an answer back from your opponent. So 130 HP, that's what most Pokemon are able to hit nowadays. So I mean, Onrush, 180 damage, that's hitting some big Pokemon. So it might be worth putting into your fire deck. Then we got Carcera. It's kind of a funny Pokemon. I don't foresee it played in too many decks, but maybe somebody will come up with something. But it's going to be a stage 2 Pokemon. 160 HP, has the ability Primal Knowledge. Your opponent's Pokemon attacks do 30 more damage to your opponent's active evolution Pokemon. So it's a damage modifier that hits more onto your opponent's active Pokemon if it's an evolution Pokemon, and it's 30 damage. So I mean, that's interesting. You'd think that it'd be more of you take all your Pokemon take 30 less damage, but in this case you're putting 30 more damage onto your opponent's active evolution Pokemon, which is interesting. And then it has Tidal Wave for 150 damage to water. So if you have this Pokemon out, you're hitting for 180 for 2 water, which is pretty nice, especially if it's an evolution Pokemon. So that's an interesting Pokemon. I don't foresee it because you do have to have some type of fossil to start off with. So it does take a little bit to get going, but it is interesting. Then we have Electivire. This is an interesting Electivire. It has 150 HP. It is a stage 1, so it does evolve from Electabuzz. For 1 lightning, you're hitting 40. But for 2 lightning, you're hitting 220 damage. With the downside, during your next turn, your Pokemon can attack. It doesn't say this Electivire or the active Pokemon or anything like that. It says your Pokemon cannot attack. So, I mean, if you know that you're going to have a buffer turn, whenever you attack with this Electivire, I would just stick with the regular 50 damage to everything Electivire. But this one right here, it's something. 2 lightning hitting for 220. You just can't attack with anything the next turn. Then from there, we got Joltik, one of the straw that broke the camel's back in getting Raikou banned. But we're going to go ahead and talk about it anyways. I don't know. I mean, it'll still be a good attacker to start off with. It's kind of like your own version of Turbo Energize. But search your deck for up to 2 basic grass energy and 2 basic lightning energy and attach them to your Pokemon in any way you like. Still very good. You could still just put in 2 grass and pay for that colorless and get up to 4 energy on one Pokemon if you wanted. Or just 4 energy out, turn 1 going second. It's still an incredible card to start off with, just getting everything energized in that first turn. So Joltik is still a consideration putting in your deck. It would have just been killer for the Raikou, for Amazing Raikou, but Amazing Raikou will be getting banned September 1st and on. So you guys can, you know, double check that on Tricky Stream, but on Andrew Mahone's stream. But he did ban September 1st Amazing Raikou, Duskull, the one with the evolving ability, as well as Marshadow. So there were some big bans coming in. Something I thought was interesting, you have the Togedemaru with 80 HP. You have for 1 lightning shocking chance. It gives you a chance of winning 30 damage. If you have exactly 1 prize card remaining, your opponent's active Pokemon is now paralyzed. So it's kind of like a stall card. So if you have 1 more prize remaining, you can use this to just hit for 1, and hopefully their paralysis sticks and you're able to buy some turns with this Togedemaru, which is very interesting, and it might be decent to put in some spread decks to just kind of make sure that you get a few more turns there at the end of the game. Then we have Iron Boulder, which is a very interesting card. Has the adjustable horn attack for 1 psychic, 1 colorless, 170 damage. If you do not have the same number of cards in your hand as your opponent, this attack does nothing. So you want to play this with cards that help you get the same amount of cards that your opponent does. So that's things like a Judge, Copycat, and just all sorts of different things. You want to be able to try to get the same amount so you can play this Iron Boulder and just hit for 170, which is kind of nuts. Then Perior, it is a stage 2, has the ability Wide Wall. As long as this Pokemon is in the active spot, whenever your opponent plays a supporter card from their hand, prevent all effects of that card done to your Pokemon in any play. So it's basically keeps you from getting bossed, keeps you from getting Guzma. You can just build stuff on the bottom, on the bench, while your Rhyperior with 200 HP is just soaking up attacks, hitting for 180 damage. It's kind of nuts. It actually, I think it's a pretty decent card. I'd play this. You play this with that Garganacl that helps heal 30 damage. You put a energy on, I believe. You might be looking at a pretty decent fighting deck. Now, fighting deck, all fighting needs is some better draw support Pokemon, and I think they're going to go through the roof, and there might be a ban in fighting. Then we got Clink Clang. I thought this was interesting as well. 140 HP. You just play the stage 2 because you have the ability Emergency Spin once during your turn. If this Pokemon is in your hand and your opponent has a stage 2 Pokemon in play, you may put this Pokemon onto your bench for free. And then it has a 2 colorless attack, Hyper Beam, hits for 130 damage, discard all energy from this Pokemon. So you can put a counter energy on there. You can just put 2 metal energy, which isn't super hard to do in a metal deck, especially whenever you have Metal Link's Bronzong, or if you have a Raihan, you can easily get this guy powered up pretty quickly. Stage 2 attackers for free are kind of nice. And then from there we have Melmetal. This one is cool because it has the Remodel Axe attack for 1 metal, 2 colorless, hits for 250 damage. But before dealing damage, discard a Pokemon tool from this Pokemon. If you can't, this attack does nothing. So you're trying to get tools on to your Melmetal. That way you're able to hit for 250 damage. So one very cool tool that you can attach to your Melmetal is a U-turn board, because it'll just go back to your hand and you're guaranteed that tool every time. But other than that, you want to play some ways to be able to get tool cards into your hand, such as Town Store, Arvin, just things like that that'll allow you to you know, consistently get tools into your hand. That way you can put them on your Melmetal and then, you know, hit for some big boy damage. It only has 160 HP, so it's kind of like a two-edged sword. Then we have my favorite GLC card coming from Stellar Crown. Is going to be the Arculodon. It has 180 HP to stage 1, so it's super easy to get going. I love big stage 1 Pokemon. We have the ability Steel Bridge your Pokemon with any metal energy attached to them, have no retreat cost. So it kind of frees up the space for maybe Float Stone. I'm not sure. I'm still kind of debating that. But if you have any metal energy attached to a certain Pokemon, you can retreat for free. And then you have for 2 metal, 1 colorless, Iron Blaster hits for a pretty respectable 160 damage. And then you just can't attack next turn. But guess what? If you tank a hit, you can just retreat for free, and hopefully you got something built on the bottom part. That way you can kind of hopefully not get knocked out on that next turn and kind of buy you another turn, which is awesome. I'm excited for this Arculodon to be able to come out in Stellar Crown. Then we have a pretty fun card coming for Dragon. We have Raging Bolt, 130 HP. It's a nice basic ancient Pokemon. For 1 lightning, 1 fighting. We have Raging Thunderstorm. This attack does 30 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon for each energy attached to this Pokemon. So this reminds me of Rayquaza, Amazing Rayquaza, except you don't have to discard. But this is going to hit for 30 per energy that's attached to this Pokemon. And it's probably not going to be that hard to get, you know, 3-4 energy attached to this Pokemon, especially with Crispen coming in. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. But I'm excited for Raging Bolt to be coming out, because I have dabbled in some Dragon spread in the past, and it always kind of felt like it didn't have enough, you know, spread attackers or snipe attackers. So Raging Bolt is a very nice addition coming into this set. Then we have Fan Rotom. This is a very good card, but only if you get it in your hand whenever you start the game, because it has the ability Fan Call. Once during your first turn, you may search your deck for 3 colorless Pokemon with 100 HP or less, reveal them and put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. So you can't use more than 1, but I mean, of course you couldn't, because this is a singleton format, but you're able to search out 3 colorless Pokemon under 100 HP or at 100 HP or less, and you know, either play those or keep those in your hand for evolving next turn. So Fan Rotom is kind of a crazy awesome card for colorless, especially if you rely on getting things set up. Fan Rotom, pretty cool, pretty cool. Oh, and also with the fact that it has the Assault landing attack for 1 colorless, it does 70 damage as long as there's a stadium out. If there's not, then it does nothing. But other than that, I mean, one energy for 70 is really good. Now on to the trainers. We got Crispen, which I mentioned earlier. Crispen allows you to search your deck for up to 2 basic energy cards of different types, reveal them, and put one of them into your hand, attach the other to one of your Pokemon, then shuffle your deck. This is going to be really good for GLC, especially for Dragon, especially for, like, let's say metal decks that run Heatran, or just any deck that runs a specific type of energy, and also like 1 or 2 basics for another Pokemon that needs a specific type of energy to hit more, or just do something with that energy. So Crispen is going to be a really cool consistency card for energy and energy acceleration. I'm excited to see what Crispen is going to do to the GLC format. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys think there are any cards that I missed or that you would have liked to saw on this list, let me know down in the comments. But other than that, always remember, stay thankful.